Like there's no reason for anything that I do now because I don't need a reason because I'm functioning from, do I feel like doing that or do I not feel like doing that? Nope, I don't. And she'll say, well, why don't you feel like doing that? It's like, I don't need a reason. And it's like a shock.
I don't have a question I want to say. That sounds like some assertion of autonomy and expression of your individuation, separation, um, where you're at, like, can be me.
How did you feel after all of those layers were peeled off?
Light, free, like there was nothing that I had to be or do, but that I could be or do anything.
There you go. That shows how using these tools can wind you right up into a mystical experience. So, okay, everybody, welcome to the Tools for Change Parts Work episode. Mindful integration. Glad to see everybody. So, this is an image that I created a while back, and it shows it's almost like a computer screen where you can choose your parts. And the idea is that unconsciously we have done this throughout our lives and we've chosen. And these are some of the parts that I tend to see a lot. I have them in alphabetical order. And so I would like people to kind of take a moment and see if you can identify any of these that you resonate with, that you've noticed that they are operating, they have operated in your life. Um, and if there's anything that's not on this list, make a note of it because when I want to hear about it, we can share with one another. So the idea is that I'm even going to start out that potentially there could be past life influences. This doesn't require a belief in reincarnation or anything, but sometimes people come to this work feeling as if they have parts that are relating to possibly a past life. Um, And then, okay, so coming into prenatal, the prenatal environment, when we're in a prenatal environment, we're absorbing the emotional and physiological cues from the mother. So if the mother is stressed or anxious, addicted to substances, anything like that, if she has a mental health issue, and what's her nutrition like, right? So all of these things can definitely affect us. And one of these programmings can be unconsciously chosen in the prenatal environment. All right, because we're in utero and we're in here, and it's not uncommon to be able to connect when doing this work, to be able to connect one of these programs that has been running directly to something that was, in utero. And so, what we want to do, remember that here in mindful integration with our toolbox, we want to have enough space. So, we're grounded in mindfulness. So, if everyone will just take a moment to ground yourself, feel inside of the body, we're all here together, and take a few deep breaths to just feel into the body. We want to allow enough space for memories to come up while we're walking through this presentation. We can allow ourselves to notice anything that might be coming up right now. So, childhood obviously is a common place where our programming originates. If we're witnessing or experiencing abuse or neglect of any kind. This is going to be a time when these parts, usually they'll come in. The parts will come in, and they're coming in, they're trying to help during these periods of time when we're younger and we're having to figure out how to live in this world. We don't know yet. We're still too young. And so these parts actually come in way back then. You know, we can literally sometimes start connecting them. So just taking a deep breath and seeing if anything is coming up for you, and maybe write it down. Is there a part that comes up for you regularly, has been kind of with you for a long time? And is there a spot in your childhood where you can notice that this is where it originated? This is where that part originated. So yeah, here's an image, parental influence. If we're receiving praise or if we're receiving criticism from our parents, this can create a part. We're also observing parental behaviors, and we're either starting to mimic those, or we might take on an opposite role. So that's important to remember, because, you know, think about, like, I know I've encountered with clients where they'll have kind of a people pleaser, or I need to be nice all the time. Let's see, we have people pleaser here, peacekeeper, overachiever. These kinds of parts can develop as a result of getting praise. So I'm realizing I'm getting praise when I'm peacekeeping, when I'm people pleasing, when I'm going out of my way to please my parents. And then a part, the people pleaser or the peacekeeper, can come in during a period like that. So, you know, in other words, parts are not always developed due to trauma and adversity. Sometimes they're developed in order to try to help me get praise. So there are all kinds of cultural expectations around families and our roles in families. So there's a lot of pressure to uphold these traditions and customs, etc. Again, this is where parts can come in. And when we're doing the work, again, you know, you can see how he has all these memory on the board. So when we're doing this work and we're realizing that I have a part and I can see when it originated, we want to treat it like this: as I'm looking at these pictures, memories on a board, and there's space between me and these images, so that we're not becoming overwhelmed with them. Okay, so let's get right into school environment, peer pressure to conform. We're trying to have academic success. Sometimes we're failing. That impacts us. Bullying, I encounter that a lot with people who are struggling with their parts. Sometimes it was because they were bullied. So again, there can be so many memories of things that we experienced during these years when we were in school trying to figure out how to be, how to act, and our parts come in order to help us be able to do that. Then we start thinking about relationships, and especially it's so confusing to try to understand romantic relationships. There's so much societal messages about relationships, about love, about intimacy, and all of that. So oftentimes a part is going to come in and form around this idea that to try to help us deal with the relationship needs and dynamics. So yes, also what about religious and spiritual? It's not uncommon for me to be working with the client and find out that basically their core trauma originated around religious beliefs and practices, these fear-based teachings, eternal damnation, that kind of thing can be very traumatizing. You're telling a kid that he or she could be punished eternally, and this can really cause trauma. And then as a result, a part, let's say, for an example, I need to be good, the good person part can just really come in and take over. And it's just, yeah, young adulthood, we're still trying to figure out how to be accepted, how to fit in. And then we start getting into social groups. And there's so many influences, group dynamics, etiquette. And so these parts can form in this period of our life as well. So we want to remember that parts are here, they are here trying to help us, and they originated during, different times of our life. Figured I would go ahead and mention media influence. We are so influenced by the media and stereotypes. We develop unrealistic expectations, and we can have a part that comes in that is trying to hold these unrealistic, stereotypical images for us so that we can get our social needs met. And again, we want to give space. See, so when we're doing parts work, we're looking at the parts that we're noticing. We're looking at when they originated, and we're doing that from a grounded sense of a grounded ego, grounded aware ego. And then we're able to look at these things with space. And then, we start getting into workplace environments. Sometimes when we're still pretty young, we're having to deal with that. And so parts get developed trying to help with that as well. So here's the list again. And then I wanted to kind of go around and share, but before we do, if you're able to stop for a moment and think about, and you can make notes, if you've identified a part or maybe a couple of parts and you've identified when they originated, and then I want to introduce some of the things that they are trying to help with, and I've got them in two different groups. So number one, on the one side, parts are trying to help us get needs met. These are things that we need. And they're also trying to help protect us from different types of pain. You see that? So as we're identifying a part, we can see when it originates. It's a lot easier to identify what was it trying to help with when it originated. You see that? And then I wanted to point out too that as we're doing this work, um, when we're working with the tools, the mindful integration tools, we're noticing stories, beliefs, we're noticing reactions, triggers, programming, indoctrination, coping strategies, parts, commands or orders, energy, emotions, patterns, and even archetypal energies. So just wanted to show you where parts kind of fit in to kind of the big picture of everything that we're looking at when we do this work. And in a way, you could see it all. This is a demonstration on parts work, and you can kind of look at it as this part that I have. I'm noticing that I have a part. I can see when it originated. I can see what it's trying to help with. And I can see that this one part has its own stories, its own beliefs, its own reactions, certain things that trigger it, and all of that. It might have its own emotions, its own energy, and all of that. Okay. So that is the little short presentation, and now I'm going to open it up for us to share. And I thought maybe we could go around and share a little bit of what we're noticing, as we're thinking about it. And then I'm going to get Sunshine and Terry to share about this experience that y'all both had like the same week. I think it was about 3 weeks ago, and they each shared it with me, and I was like, wow. Why don't we share this with people? Because it seemed to me that it was parts related, but it might not be. I don't know. All right, so I'm going to share for me, that I have a controller part. It's a primary part, a controller part, and it originated when I was in a young adult, around 16, a teen. I was a teen. And the controller part is trying to help me to avoid being controlled and abused and even raped. It originated during a date rape, and so it's just clear, it's pretty clear that that was when it originated. And, even though I don't really need it all the time, sometimes it pops up on its own. And, what we like to do is whenever the part comes in and takes over, um, it's beautiful to give space to the part. Thank you to my controller for coming in right now. And thank you for just coming into my life when I was a teen. Thank you for trying to protect me from being abused. Right. And so when I do that, it allows that controller to relax. It allows the controller to relax. And now I can sort of decide how I'm going to react moving forward. So that's an example of my part. So that's an example of my part. All right. So Terry, are you willing to share a little bit about what you know about maybe one of your parts?
Yeah. I was trying to look at the avoider because that's jumped right out at me, and the critic, and they sitting here thinking about it, they are connected, or they got connected somehow. So the avoider got developed probably 4 or so years old because my relationship with avoiding my mother. I was an only child, so I really enjoyed my own company, nobody hassling me. So I learned early that if I was avoiding something, I was usually also criticizing. I didn't want to do that, or that wasn't for me, or that wasn't good for me, because from a very early age, I was responsible for those decisions. So I think the critic became more predominant as I got more and more involved with the marketplace, spiritual marketplace, because it required so much discernment. And I felt that I had to be critical because I felt like there were so many charlatans out there at the time, years, maybe now, but years ago. And so I would avoid interacting with people, and I would also be, these two work together quite a bit, and criticized. And that happened as a result of being taken advantage of. So the more I recognize that somebody potentially might be able to take advantage of me for some reason, even as a small kid, I can remember 6 and 7 years old, a neighbor taking advantage of me, or several, or that, I became critical so I could observe the signs of what are you avoiding exactly, So as an adult, the avoider has gotten much more confused about what is it we're avoiding now. But it is a very strong part of my personality, because there's so many aspects being who I am that I just don't enjoy playing the game. So I don't. So if I see the games showing up, I'll avoid it. So maybe I felt trapped as a kid. I don't know. I know that, being an only child, being a latchkey kid, having no parental supervision for long periods of time, discernment had to be developed at a very early age, like 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So, yeah, we want to appreciate that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming in and helping me with that.
And protecting me, because the avoider was a protector.
Yeah.
Person, people would take you home from school with them, and then shit would happen, or things would happen at their house. And so I learned at a pretty early age to avoid people that look like they could be trouble. And a lot of times I was correct.
Right. Right. Thank you, Terry. Okay, let's see. Sunshine, are you ready to share?
Sure. I just did this in small group. It's my people pleaser part. There's so many parts, and every one of them I think was created to help me survive. But the one that came up really today was my people pleaser, who always felt unworthy and incapable of really doing anything. So we really looked at her today. That happened at a very early age, when I found I could never make anyone happy, but it seemed that I was always trying. And I'm really trying to respect and be grateful, thank her for being there, for showing up every time she has, because I'm still here. So she was doing her job. She kept me alive, and let her know that she doesn't really need to be here anymore, that we don't have to feel that way anymore. We don't have to worry about pleasing everyone anymore, But I think at last count, I had like 13 different parts that like to show up just on occasion, so. And they all have their specific thing they do. So.
Yes. Yes. So do you feel like you have identified a lot of different parts, and you have identified when they each one originated pretty much, and exactly what it was trying to help with then?
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, I've been working on finding these parts for several years now. And when I thought I had a ball, hey, someone else says, huh, you forgot about me, huh?
So yeah, so we want to normalize this, we want to
Yeah.
allow that we might have 13, 15, 20 parts and let that be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's let that be okay, because
Yeah.
there might be an idea I'm too much, right? If I have
Mm.
that many parts. Well, okay, we can accept that here, right?
Thank you.
I had some aversion come up, like not wanting to do it, not sure if how relevant it is for me right in my current version of myself. So I was talking to one of my Buddhist teachers this morning and sharing I've done this recent kind of switch into really appreciating the strategies. I think of them as energy management strategies, the strategies that I developed to cope with what was in my system. And one of those was anorexia, bulimia, and then I was a sugar binger for 30 to 35 years without barfing, and attempting recovery. And so where I'm at now is I can really appreciate that these were very effective strategies. They really kept me from knowing the truth about what happened, as much as I can know, what happened in my childhood. And I was also complicit in violence to that precious, innocent, tortured, beautiful child that I was. And that is what is so. That is what is so. That I worked really, really hard to get better. And the parts of me that believed that I think I needed that. I needed to take myself out that way. And I have a couple yoga teaching certifications, and like I was violent. I did horrible things to myself, really, for decades, maybe more. Like, I felt sick. I made myself sick. And I'm this vibrant, amazing, self-expressed person now. But so
And you don't really see that as a part of you, that like the addict maybe that did that.
it doesn't matter. Like the somatic truth is that it was my hand that did the damage, and I could, of course, it was a coping strat. And it's like in Buddhism they talk about blameless and responsible. Like, I'm blameless. I was just doing what I needed to do to cope.
Mm-hmm.
And I drank syrup of ipecac, and I stuck plastic things down my throat, and I did these things that resulted in this person, me, experiencing feeling ill. Like this beautiful, so I'm so about life So it's just like, it's just where I am in my process, like where I'm stepping into this new thing where I'm starting this business, joyful movement, joyful moment, and I'm stepping out bigger, and and it's like the stuff is coming up. The truth is that I am so about life, and I've fought so hard to stay alive, and I also fought in some ways kind of hard to like die and still breathe. I mean, that's kind of how I understand it now. Like, gee, that really worked. I was able to like kind of kill myself and still stay breathing. Um, and I have to be accountable on the planet that this is was a chunk of my journey. Not I'm a bad person, not I am the addict, or not anything other than, wow, I'm so about health and aliveness. Wow, these hands did it. Total crazy. You know, Eckhart Tolle talks about the pain body, and, you know, can you even take responsibility? All I'm trying to say is that's where I'm at in terms of having to confront this and say, this is right. You know, and now, like, now I got to just be here in this
I
life.
mean, it almost seems like, just speaking from a point where all the parts have integrated, you know, instead of looking at each part as a separate thing. Because you've done a lot of work and you're just saying, yeah, I did it. It was me. Whereas we're saying, oh, that was my addict part that did it.
I'm saying yes, and like it's integrating. I'm
Yeah.
not it's not like I'm
Well, right, right.
there, right?
Yes, yes.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
it just seems like definitely a space where all the parts have been integrated, and I'm just now seeing that as me. Um, yeah,
I'm seeing that I'm 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 like everybody else on the planet, and I spent decades acting out robotically from my conditioning. You know, mine might have been more violent and had more like dramatic shit, being in jail and mental hospitals, but I was acting out of conditioning like everybody else on the planet. And I have to
right.
reckon with that and say,
Yes,
okay, and not, now what? Be in the present. No, 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 no. Say what needs attention needs attention.
yes. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, Annie,
Thank
thanks. I thought it was so interesting a couple of weeks ago when both Terry and Sunshine shared something with me. So I invited them and I wanted to go ahead and
Yeah, I went to dinner with some friends that I didn't know. One friend and five of her closest friends, and we were sitting at a round table. And I'm here in a city where I have really no interaction. So all my identities, the IFS system, all of the identities have pretty much fallen away because they're not needed at all. I'm not. So I not identifying with one aspect of the self. So I go and meet them, and we're sitting at this, at the steak knife. It's fabulous food, and each one of them was very different of a person. And so I was trying to, since I just met everybody but one person, I was trying to kind of get in rapport with what's happening, what are they like, what are they like? They were all so different. But at one point when I was sitting there and everybody was watching, interacting, and I wasn't necessary for me to be doing so, all of a sudden I just felt like the identity, the nurse identity fell away, just fell away. The parental identity just fell away. The girlfriend, wife identity just fell away. The daughter identity just fell away. And it was like I was sitting in the middle of a lotus maybe, or some kind of flower where the petals were just falling open. And as each one opened, there was nothing to identify with that petal. So maybe 5 or 6 identities fell away. And the reason for that is because I'm not identifying with them anymore. And so the shadow work, or whatever kind of work we're doing, has mostly been done with most of those processes. And I was just left there, and it was so interesting because it wasn't like there was no self there or anything like that. It was like there was no identity there. And it was so cool because I felt like I didn't need an identity anymore. And I don't pick them up too much anymore either. I'm sure I develop some more. If I continue to have experiences, I'll need identity to do that. But it was just such a clear wiping of the slate or cleaning of the board.
Do you
Yeah.
think that it was kind of triggered by them kind of expressing who they are and all of that?
It
You
could
know,
have been, it
'cause-
felt more to me at the time that I didn't have anything to offer them. This woman was, just wild, and I don't have anything to offer her. I'm not going to go out and be wild, Not that there's anything wrong with that, just been there, done that enough time. This person, was that, and I had nothing to offer her except my own being, which right now, without anything with what I'm doing in my life, there's not a whole lot left over for that. And so that's the way it felt like to me, like, what could I have to offer this person here that's going through this, just lost your mother? What do I have? Because normally you do have an ability to know that you have something to offer someone. There's some way that you can, and for me, there's some way that I can normally help or contribute to the conversation. But in this situation, nobody, nothing was, so all I did the whole night was, and my friend that I knew was sitting across the table, and I couldn't hear her because the table was so large, so I couldn't interact with her. So all I did was just simply like smile with no identity and interact with no identity. And it was such an interesting experience because an identity was not needed to do that.
wow.
So, and
So you're
when,
getting comfortable. You're getting comfortable not having to have a big identity for sure.
yeah. Yeah, it was really interesting. And it's really been that way. That's when I was telling you the other night when I said something that was so typical in our conversation of my personality. And that's not even been there. And when it came up and I said it, it was like, oh, that's the old personality. You really don't even feel that way. So it's funny to watch this process because first of all, we don't know where it's going. We don't have a destination. And it's hard to believe that you can function without an identity because we've been so dependent on the personality for so long. And the personality needs to be liked. The personality needs to be accepted. The personality needs a lot of things that creates all these parts. And if you don't need a personality, all of that kind of just falls away for a while, not permanently, 5 minutes.
If you need a personality, it can come in, but so, that was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I mean, at what like, have you noticed, parts coming in and going? Does it seem like less, parts coming in and taking over?
Yeah, there's very few parts coming in, taking over. And that's, I think, why I resonated with the avoider in your list, because I just want to be alone all the time. It just feels so nice not to have to interact. And it's not that I don't want to interact. Like sometimes I go, what is this depression? No, I don't feel depressed. Is this? Is this? But it's really the avoider. So, and the avoider has maybe stepped up. And one thing I have noticed since then, that's happened a few times, is that I'm a caretaker for my mother now, and it takes up a lot of energy. And so one of the things that she does is she is very invasive. She asks you a lot of questions, and she's always kind of trying to get in your business. And it's kind of irritating. Being an only child, I had a lot of attention with that growing up. And I've noticed in conversations now that'll start happening, and I'll just look at her and I'll say, I don't need a reason. Like there's no reason for anything that I do now because I don't need a reason, because I'm functioning from, do I feel like doing that or do I not feel like doing that? Nope, I don't. And she'll say, well, why don't you feel like doing that? It's like, I don't need a reason. And it's like a shock. But I think that that's a refusal to identify with the part.
Yes.
Part doesn't need anything from that, but I don't have to make up a story about it. I can simply say, I don't need a reason because I don't. So it's kind of cool. Like I'll be interested to see, if I go back to work, I'll have to develop an identity to play with that and all of that. But you know, it is going to be interesting to see what, and there is a searching, not a searching, but a scanning that I do with myself. That's like looking for, is there anything of interest that you might want to pursue in here, of any identity that hasn't had that opportunity before because of circumstances to show up? So that's kind of what I'm sitting with now.
Very cool. Does anybody have any questions for Terry before we move on to sunshine?
I don't have a question I want to say. That sounds like some assertion of autonomy and expression of your individuation, separation, where you're at, like, can be me. Don't need
Yeah,
to explain.
I don't need a reason.
Don't need to explain.
I don't need a
Right.
reason. I love that. I don't need to justify my position. It's not a position. I'm just no
Don't
position.
know nothing. Can't explain it.
Okay,
It is freeing, Annie. Yes, thank you. It is. But it's also inconvenient because it's hard to interact with people. It can be.
yeah.
Oh, that is so true. So many, I've learned not to say, okay, wait, do not say, I don't care what you do, or there's socially appropriate way. I can tell you.
Yeah, well, I say often in situations these days that what do I care what they think? You know, it's like there's a total disconnect from that. And being a people pleaser, that's big work, you know. And then people look at you like, well, you're supposed to care. Why? That person doesn't have anything to do with me. What do I care what they do? What I think? What, you know, it's so interesting.
Well, that's kind of like authentic shadow work, right? Because the person that doesn't care, the part of the self that doesn't care is able to express instead of having to care about what everybody thinks.
Yeah. And it's not that I don't care at all. I don't care about that person, but more like do what you want. I give you permission to do what you want because I'm going to do whatever I want. So, you know, let me know how it works out for you.
Yes. I love it. Okay, cool. Okay, sunshine.
Hmm. Yes, being our authentic selves is so freeing, right? My
Mhm.
favorite saying is, it's none of my business what other people think about me. One day I'll completely believe it. Well, my experience was a little bit different. I was attending a breath work with Taz over Zoom, and it was amazing. I remember by the time we were done with the breathing, my body had begun to vibrate so fast. I felt almost as if I was floating above the couch. And then she led us into this guided meditation where we were walking into a sunset, into a beach, into the water. And once we got into the water, there were stairs that came up. And as I started walking up the stairs, I could see myself. Every step I took, it was like I was unzipping a layer of myself and peeling out of it and just dropping it right there. Until I became, in each layer became more translucent and more translucent. And once I got to the top, it was like I was a silhouette of light. And then I could see around me all of these other silhouettes of light. And we were all connected by a string of light that came from my heart and reached out to theirs. And we were all connected in a web. And it brought tears to my eyes. Like right now, I can just feel the overpowering flush of like freedom. It just felt so free. It was amazing. I would absolutely suggest anybody thinking that has never tried one of those breath works. That was the third one I've done with her, and every time something amazing happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you were saying it was like layers, and Terry was saying it was like petals. And that was why I was comparing them, because it was almost as if both of y'all had these layers or petals, um, you know, coming off of you. And
Mhm.
then how did you feel after all of those layers were peeled off?
Light, free, like there was nothing that I had to be or do, but that I could be or do anything.
So again, it's kind of like the loss of an identity that
Mm,
just
absolutely. And I have found myself since then. My partner is the first one that's going to trigger me, and I spend a lot of time with him. And I really find myself, all those moments that used to trigger me, I'm just like, okay.
Um, So I've had the experience of like, my clothes, like my personality, like taking off my clothes, like that. But what is I'm curious about this because then I've come back, like my all of my uh yeah. So how long has this been? Because I'm always curious about. Okay, so after the big release, like
it's been
Jacqueline.
like 3 weeks. It's been
Mhm.
3 weeks for both of
Oh,
y'all.
oh, see, that's so good. Ooh, I
Yes.
needed that. Thank you. Oh, I love that. Oh, wow, thank you.
Oh, yes.
So this can
Well,
happen.
it is seen that it is not possible to identify at this point.
Mm, yeah.
And it's interesting because there's a lot of uncomfortableness with not being able to slide right into an identity and
Mm,
play that role. And so I think that's why there's such a limiting myself around certain people, because certain people will just trigger your role to show up. And
mhm,
I'm liking this. I'm liking that, that's where the IFS work and the parts work is which part are you identifying with?
mm,
Is that part functional or dysfunctional?
And do I need it or not? Does my real self that really doesn't need an identity, do I need this? And if I do, like you said, if I go back to work, I'm going to have to probably have kind of like an identity at work or whatever. Um, and so it's okay if I'm choosing to have one. It's just that's from a place where they've all peeled off, and now I can take one if I need it,
mm.
kind of thing.
Yeah, I unfortunately have not had the opportunity to spend that much time by myself. I've had a lot of family events that have happened since then. And so, um, but I really can see how that identity of those different parts that used to come out for each thing have really just let me go a bit. They've integrated, they've released, they know, I guess they know if I need them, they're there, but I don't seem to need them so much anymore. And it's like
Mhm.
we're connected enough to understand that. So I really feel this work with MI and being able to go to the origin and connect with the vulnerable self at the place that the programming even originated has just been so powerful for me to be able to really connect and stay connected.
To the vulnerable self, if there's any needs there at that level.
Yeah.
Well, that's a shortcut to this work, right? So
Mm,
if I'm feeling triggered in any way, if I have a moment and I have enough space, I can just stop and just go right there into my inner self to see, is there any part of me any of my, from childhood, or as we looked at the presentation, do I have, is my 2-month-old, how is she doing? Is my 4-year-old, scanning my inner world to see if there's a part of me that needs anything. And then when I realize everybody's like, I'm good, then here I'm back to there's no identity. I'm free. I'm just free spaciousness. And there can be a moment of, wait a minute, who am I? And it's like, I don't need an identity. Like what you said, Terry, I don't need to be somebody. It's freedom.
This is very fascinating in terms of say being in pure potential or in the infinite, yet still aware that we are embodied. We're still in, like, hey, I'm in here. Like, it's,
I like that.
I haven't vaporized yet. I have not merged. But it's really like how are we going to, especially as women, like how are we going to show up empowered and expressed and real? Like, oh yeah, we do have a 2-year-old, like a 2-month, like, yeah. So I'm loving this because so excited I came today. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sharon, Penelope, do y'all have anything? Have you experienced some of this too, as far as, because I know you've practiced a lot, Penelope. You have a deep spiritual life and all.
Yeah, the one I've certainly had a lot of different experiences throughout many, many years. A lot of them as a result of these last 4 years of doing this work deeply. My one suggestion, I don't, I'm kind of what you do you and you do it however you want. What I found, I can only share my experience, and what I found works for me is, these experiences are wonderful. And then I found in the past, I would find myself grasping, wanting to hang on to it, or noticing that, it would start to fade away. And then I would, put a lot of energy into trying to, oh, wait, I got to get back there, or I've got to get to the next one. And what I found has worked for me is to not attach to these experiences. Because experiences all happen within mindfulness, within awareness, and experiences have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And they all come and go.
Yes.
But what remains is that field of awareness. And that, to me, is the true freedom. Because when I can stay in that awareness, I'm able to use the tools. If I am triggered, if a part pops up, if then I can use the tools, and I'm not just totally chasing after an experience.
Right.
I can
Right.
accept the fact that it's going to come and it's going to go, and I can enjoy it while it's there, but then not get wrapped up in pursuing it, because that in itself has an energy that can take me off track.
Yeah.
And
The
then I get
seeker.
through that energy before I can actually do the work. If I'm, the seeker, exactly right. That's another part. Right?
The
And
seeker.
letting go of that was extremely powerful. It was a release. It was a release of this weight, that I carried.
Yes.
And that was several years ago. So I'm not, not enlightened. I don't, I don't, I don't even pursue that as a goal.
Right.
And actually, what we're described. There's many different kinds of experiences.
Right.
And if
Right.
I can just accept that these are all going to come and go within that awareness, then
Exactly. My motivation for doing this was because, some people have never even had a mystical experience, and they would like to have one, and this is one of the ways that you can have a mystical experience, is by using these tools. And when the two of them shared that on the same week, I was like, there you go. That shows how using these tools can wind you right up into a mystical experience.
Yeah, the one that Sunshine shared sounds so similar to something that happened to me back a few years ago. Like
Oh,
it was so powerful. The vibrating part, and then the connection, like a web of people connect. Yeah, but that's that again. But it was beautiful.
Yes, yes.
And you don't forget that. I mean, we have a
No, you
memory
don't.
of it, and we can use that as information, but it's not a grasping that I need to get back there or be there.
Right, right. Yeah. Thanks, Penelope. So Sharon, how are you doing?
Yeah, I was actually doing a meditation, and after I left, I had to make sure I was safe. I The only thing I had was a car. And I mean, I had plenty of family that offered me to stay with them, but I was guided to stay with a friend. And I remember in my meditation, I was like, the meditation was like, I heard the voice say, like, you have nothing. You have no this, you have no home, no retirement, no this, no that, no nothing. And all you have is like God and yourself. And that's all you need. And the beautiful thing about that was that I don't have anything from this earthly realm that's going to define me or make me feel better about myself, because I needed to see that who I am is all that I need, not any of that. And then I had this like truly deeply peace from within, that I was going to be okay. That even though I'm in, rock bottom in many ways, from an earthly perspective, I am truly at a beautiful place to be where I am. And that anyway, I can't describe it as well as I thought about it, but anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
that was huge for me.
Wow, that's beautiful too. I could definitely
Yeah,
tap into it.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of the things about mystical and spiritual experiences, is that it's really very difficult to put them into words. And when
Yes.
you try to the average person, you sound crazy, or you sound, yeah.
But
But
I'm
don't
I'm
worry
getting
about it. You get
goosebumps,
it.
when everybody's sharing.
I guess to sum it up is that even though I don't have a lot from a material point of view, I feel deeply rich inside, deeply rich, like rich in the things that, as we know, money cannot buy, in the peace and yeah, the joy, and just really the infinite love that is always there for myself first, so that I will be able to give now from a place of abundant love, a place of abundance, and not and just love and truth and balance, and not from a place of exhaustion and feeling like I need to be responsible for everyone else, and feeling, like
Mm,
that's what I'm supposed to do,
right,
or approval or people pleasing, all that stuff,
right,
it's,
right.
yeah.
It's the freedom that we feel when all of our parts have relaxed, or just, they've peeled away, right? That was kind of the topic of today, just how when our parts will relax and they'll peel away like petals or layers, we're just left with just our authentic, true,
Yeah.
non-identity, spiritual being.
oh,
And it is hard to say, but I think everybody understands what we're saying.
Yeah, one of the things that I am going to do, it's going to be a website called Lift, Living in Freedom Today, and I want it to be a collective of people who are going to, it's like be a clearinghouse for people's different work. But one of the things, I'm very creative. I've wanted to do extraordinary women, ordinary lives. I think it is possible to put these experiences to find language. They are happening in the non-word place, but everybody here got inspired and like pumped up from listening, and other
Yes.
people need to hear it. And they also need to hear, don't be chasing them. They also need to hear that they end.
Yeah.
But this is, in fact, something that is kind of ordinary. If we're willing, and one of the videos I've made that will be on there is I pledge of allegiance to myself, that I will stay with myself, will not abandon myself, and but I will come back, and I will come back, and I will stay. I will stay. I will stay.
All right, everybody, we did good.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. I appreciate everybody. I feel great. I'm ready to go out for a walk.
Beautiful.
All right. So we'll do it again, maybe, why can't we give hope to other people that are still trapped and feeling very possessed by their parts? Why can't we share this with them so they'll know there is another way to live? Yeah.
It's fine. I think-
Good. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, y'all.
Thanks, June.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.